The CGA Tour, a podcast unlike any other. Now your host, Calvin Alexander.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the CGA Tour Podcast. As always here, I'm your host with the most, Calvin Glen Alexander, and I am welcoming on here Alexi Bollwerk, fellow friend, fellow OSU alum, fellow sports media alum, and of course, big fan of Oklahoma State men's basketball and former Mike Boynton fan. I will say you did renew your season tickets for after Boynton left, so I don't know. I mean, is it just drives getting tough? Was a lot of time there. 7 years. You were like, hey, yeah, after 7 years, I mean, it gave the guy a long time. Did come back for 8 maybe, but I'm just giving you a hard time here. Alexi, how's it going?
It's great, as always. Great to be on here with you for a podcast. It's been too long since we've done one of these, so I'm excited to talk to Oklahoma State, college basketball, whatever you want to throw at me or discuss. I'm ready for it, so looking forward to it.
Well, yeah, that sets me up perfectly here because we're definitely going to talk about the Oklahoma State win last night. Steve Letz's first Big 12 win as a head coach for the Oklahoma State Cowboys. And then talk a little about that game, talk about a little bit about maybe what we think this team can actually do, because there were a lot of social media content out there that I'll get to in here in a minute about the Oklahoma State basketball team. And then, of course, transition over to football, talk about some of the transfers we got in, and kind of get your thoughts, insights here as well, too, as somebody who played for Oklahoma State football. Granted, it was a great summer, but you know what? You interacted. You were with the team. You were closer than I ever was, in the day-to-day lifestyle of it. Get to that here as well, too. And then get your thoughts on some of those transfer guys, like I said, coming in. So anyways, leading off here, Oklahoma State wins last night, goes ahead and just takes apart what is a pretty darn good on paper K-State team, but has not proven to be a good team overall. They've not played up to what anyone thought K-State would be doing this year. Jerome Tang has been a good coach until this year. There's a bunch of until this year I could talk about K-State, but last night Oklahoma State beats K-State, gets that first win on the season, Big 12 play, like I said, first win at home, and, kind of lights a fire under some Oklahoma State fans like myself here who were going, you know what, I don't know what to expect this year. Maybe we're not going to do that great. And I saw a lot of social media stuff saying, are we really going to go winless in the Big 12 again after going winless in football? And I was like, there's just no way. Basketball, there's too many games. Guys have nights off. Also, guys hit shots. So what did you take away from the game last night?
Yeah. No doubt about it. Great to get a Big 12 win, especially not having to wait 6-7 games before it happens. This is our third Big 12 game. We picked up the W. Great sign, at least compared to football this year. So yes, nice win at home in front of a very small crowd. As we all know, kids are on break still. Wasn't going to fill the house for a game against K-State on a Tuesday night. That's okay. But Steve Letz gets his first win. Biggest takeaway for me yesterday was being able to finally hit some three-pointers. That's been something Oklahoma State has struggled with over the last few years, is this team just doesn't have a three-point shooter, or they'll take tons of three-pointers and just can't make any of them. But last night finally did well. They went 9 for 21 from the three-point line. That's 43%. Great sign to see. It seems like this is just overall, I know it's not a great team, but they just seem like a more disciplined team under Steve Letz. So I am really enjoying that part of this Oklahoma State team. I think we saw a little bit of some inconsistency from this team. And don't get me wrong, this is a totally different team from what we saw last year to this year, with the transfer portal and all. But I think we're starting to see some consistency, and I think a lot of that starts with our head coach, Steve Letz. So hopefully more positivity to come in Big 12 play. It's not going to be easy by any means, but I think we will be a little bit better in basketball than we were in football, at least so far.
At least so far, for sure. We are now 6-1 at home overall, and we're now 1-2 in Big 12 play. But it's the 13th road loss in a row for K-State. So I'm not trying to hype up this win too much and say, hey, we beat a K-State team. That should be. But no one thought we'd be better than K-State. And even if they did really side our way, even if some three-point shots did go 9-21 from the field, it's not something we can ever think will happen every night, especially when, like you said, we are not a three-point shooting team. But with the guys that Lutz was able to get in the portal, I agree. I did think this team would be a little bit different in just how the energy would be, the passion. I'm not saying Boynton's team's never brought it defensively, but it seems as though we're okay making more mistakes here, but just playing extremely fast to make up for it. Just going, hey, we're going to just try to beat you 90 to 80. Like, we're going to play really, I mean, I wouldn't even say really physical basketball. We're just going to play really, really fast basketball. We're going to really try to be in transition, be up down the court. We saw that really against New Mexico when they were like, I mean, a lot of points scored. And then we saw it in the game beforehand. I believe it was against, say Providence or UMass, where basically just like the ball came to just an absolute stop. And it was like, oh, ho-hum, like, what are we doing? Yeah, I mean, just so many different fouls in one of our games earlier this year in the Charleston Classic competition, where it was just like, you've got to be kidding me. Really, like, how many fouls can they call? This game's going to last for forever. We're taking 40 foul shots a team, which seems insane. So now there's kind of an idea of how Lutz likes to run things and like what Lutz likes to play as. Where do you think he would want to go after this year? Because he was a late hire in the transfer portal cycle too, so he wasn't able to pick all his guys. And even then, like, Oklahoma State had only a couple wins. We weren't looking like the greatest things in sliced bread to come and join either. Once he did get hired, just because we hadn't had that great of a season. So what do you think? We're looking at next year. Not that I already want to talk about 26, but kind of got to at this point.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, in this era of the transfer portal, you don't really know what to expect. You have to recruit these guys every single season. You can't really expect them to all just come back after one season. It's just the way college sports is right now. How this goes though going forward, I mean, I think you kind of said it. The way Steve Lutz's style is run and go, and you want to play at a high tempo. So I think you got to find players like that who can play in transition, who can make shots in transition, and hit the wide open 3-pointers if you're playing that quick of a pace. Another thing I like is, like you said, the defense. They're going to grind you down. Their style of play is, of course, the tempo, but forcing turnovers. And that's where that transition game comes to. So I think you just have to try to find the right players who can fit that style. If you can do that and he can build a team around in that area, I think this could be a good team within, 3 to 4 years. Give him some time to at least develop some players, hopefully. And if not developing them, finding the right guys in the transfer portal year by year and just kind of building off of that. So that's where I would go for if I was trying to build a team here with Steve Lutz.
I love to hear it, because I think there's a type of guy you can build around, and it's guys like that, guys who just bring hustle and intensity, and that's not necessarily like a one and forever chance of getting a guy like that. It just seems like those guys are available. You are able to get guys like that. I mean, heck, Javon Smalls, if he was still with Oklahoma State, that'd be great. It'd be great to have him still with the team, because he's signing up for West Virginia. But would have, could have, should have at this point, and excited for Lutz to get a full transfer class in next year. Of course, excited to see where the rest of the season goes, though, before I even get to that. And right now, of course, we have one win in the Big 12. There are 3 winless teams, though, in the Big 12 so far: Cincinnati, Utah, and Colorado. And we go to Utah this weekend, this Saturday. We got to go up to what, Provo? So Provo's where BYU plays, excuse me. But still, got to go to Utah. Do you envision this team finishing with more than one Big 12 win? Couple? Do you think we finish better than Utah or Colorado, or both, and kind of get up there a little bit? Or do you think we'll kind of be in that pack with these guys in that same tier?
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the schedule right now, Utah on the road, BYU on the road, those will be tough, but I think one of them could be winnable. You come back home, you play Colorado, Arizona. I think obviously in college basketball, especially, home court advantage is so big. And so I think that's probably where we'll find most of our wins. We might steal 1 or 2 on the road, but I think most of our wins will probably come at home this year. So yeah, I think we'll be, just from what I've seen this year from this Oklahoma State team, I feel like we'll be somewhat in the bottom tier, but not the worst of the Big 12. I think we're better than the worst. I've seen this team play. Yes, there could be stretches that are hard to watch, but I still think it's better than last year and what we saw in years under Boynton. So I think, to answer your question, if I had to put in the total amount of Big 12 wins, maybe, I'm not saying this is good by any means, but 500 is what? Usually finishing 9-9, 18 conference games. So I'll say, being a little optimistic here in Steve Lutz's first year, I'll say we win 6 Big 12 games. How about that?
I would love six wins in the Big 12. Because all of a sudden 6 more wins than we have right now beats our win total from last year by a good margin. And right now we've got 9 wins. So that's 15, and that's almost 500 on the season.
I would take that.
For
this team.
Green Bay was one of those wins, and there's some other wins in there that are like, well, who have you played? But that's what everyone's doing. Besides it looks like Arizona, because it looks like once Arizona entered conference play, then they figure out how to play basketball again, which is just bizarre. But besides Arizona here, I also like to say at least we are still the last ranked team in the Big 12 in Ken Pom rankings. I know you're a big Ken Pom guy. Now we're not the last in the Big 12 and in offensive rating. That I think is K-State. No, that's Colorado, excuse me. Or TCU. But either way here, it's not like this one win is something that I want to just talk about the building off of for forever. But I do think there's a good chance we beat Utah, we beat Colorado. We play Colorado. That's our next home matchup. Not this Saturday, but next, of course. And so, excited to see what we could do here in basketball, because I think we could make a little bit of noise here in the Big 12, maybe go to the tournament. Not every single team gets in the Big 12 tournament. And as far as March Madness goes, it'd be a real big hope and aspiration we could get there. I don't think that's possible this year. But then again, we brought back 3 guys from last year's team, period. And one of them, I don't think has played more than a minute or two, and that's Connor Dow. So, and then I thought 3-star out of Tulsa area, I think Big Speed to be exact, who's a 3-point shooter, who's a little bit taller guy. I was really high on him. If you listen back to the podcast from last year about this time, I was talking about Connor Dow a lot. I was like, hey, we need that 3-point shooter, as you said earlier on, and he's just not proven to be that guy. But you know what? We'll trudge on a little bit here. I now, of course, have to ask you about everyone's favorite Oklahoma State topic in the entire world, which is Michael Ray Gundy, or Guns at okstate.edu for his email. What do you think about the way the season ended with Gundy? You, of course, have been a long time Oklahoma State fan, but I would also say you're one who I like to ask here, because you did not grow up as an Oklahoma State fan just overall. You attended Oklahoma State with me, first graduated together, played a lot of basketball. But what do you think about Mike Gundy and how the season ended with the Board of Regents, all that good type of stuff?
So, always been a Mike Gundy fan. And I'll say what I've been telling a lot of my close friends, my brother, who's a big Oklahoma State fan as well, is under Gundy, a year like this should never happen. Ever, in my opinion. I think maybe this kind of stuff happens year 1 to year 3 as a new coach. Maybe up to year 5, depending on the situation. But year 20, this kind of a season where you're just this bad, you don't win a Big 12 game, I think that's inexcusable. Now, I will give him some slack. I will give a little slack because he's been doing this, that was his 20th season, right? 20th, right? Is that right? 20 years officially?
Yeah. This was his 20th season.
20th season.
Next year would be his 20th bowl game. I think This is now his 20th. Depends on how you factor, because he started in 06, and some seasons, of course, have gone past New Year's Day. So it just kind of 19 or 20. We'll
say 20. I just want to try to make it as official as I can on that number. But 20 years, and let's be honest, he's been pretty damn good in those 20 years. He's never really had a season as bad as this. So, I'm right in the middle with it in a way, because, look, you can't just fire him after one horrible season like this. Now, I think there's a way you go about it, though. You go to him, you say, hey, this can't happen again. There need to be changes. And I think that is a big thing. I think Gundy hasn't adapted to the new era of college football. And what is that? NIL and transfer portal. He's an old school guy. That's why we've seen some coaches in college sports retire or resign. More recently, we saw Jim Larinaga resign or retire, whatever his title was. After it was like 2 weeks ago, this happened, but he just basically said, "I'm out. I don't want to do this anymore. The way this is not fun." So I don't know if Gundy's at that point. I think he would have already quit by now if that was the case. But I do think he needs to adapt, and it needs to happen quick, because if it doesn't, it's going to be seasons like this that happen. And Oklahoma State doesn't want to put up with that. That's why the board regents met with him and basically said, hey, you need to do something, take a pay cut. Let's get more NIL deals here and bring some more talent into Stillwater. So, yeah, at the end of the day, I didn't think you can just get rid of him after one horrible season. You got to give him a chance to get back to what he was, as long as he's capable of doing that and wants to do it. And it sounds like he wants to. It sounds like he obviously doesn't want to go out the way he did this year. So, yeah, I know there's some frustrating people, or people are frustrated in Stillwater about how the season went. Very understandable. I'm also one of those people who are frustrated, don't believe something like this should ever happen for a program like us. But let's give them a chance to turn it around. Maybe next year we could be somewhat better and just continue to move forward. But yes, this Oklahoma State is too good to be this bad, and we should be running the Big 12. There's no excuse that we shouldn't be a top 3 to 4 team in the Big 12 every single year in football, regardless of NIL and transfer portal. We're too good of a program for that.
We really are. And there's so much to say about the transfer portal here, especially with the guys that we got coming in and guys we got leaving. But what has stood out to me here is that the contract details have not been announced for a state of Oklahoma employee. I want to be clear in saying that generally needs to be, I think, detailed out. At least the salary piece of this year, and the buyout information would be followed by there. But the latest tweet Oklahoma State has about that is that Gundy will be back upon signing the new contract. So has he still not signed it? And it's been like what seems like more than a month here, but I'm not trying to get at that too much here, because that's a real specifics in the weeds thing. And Gundy's back. Like, let's face it, no one's talking about this. It means he's back. Robert Allen's talking about how Gundy's the greatest things in sliced bread again. It means Gundy's back. I mean, we know how RA is. I mean, we know he is a focal point of the Oklahoma State program. Talking about Oklahoma State football and pumping up where it needs to be pumped up, honestly, because for a while there, Oklahoma State football was the Gundy show. It was the mullet. It was the car washes through ESPN where they bring the guys through and him having a couple things, and him in the wrestling singlet, and him doing these memes here and back and forth and there. And even earlier this year, he's fixing the fridge and making funny notes about that, or he's unplugging it, making some comments about that during the press conferences. And then as the year kind of led on, and as we kept losing more and more conference games, there were worse and worse quotes that came out. But when you look at it from 10,000 feet out, after the season's over, after the Colorado loss where we were held scoreless in a game and we lost 50-0 on the last game of the season, we lose senior day, just things that we never see during the Gundy era. Once we all get removed from all of that, it's like, all right, well, is it absolutely horrible? Is it unsalvageable? And I just don't think we're there yet. And we're proving to get some guys and transfer guys here and there that are, a couple transfers from Power 5 schools, a couple transfers from other schools that, hey, you know what? I've heard of guys from these smaller schools before too. So I feel like there's definitely hope. And I have an idea what I hope is going on here with the offensive and defensive coordinator. Each of those guys is bringing other guys in who could be taking their place in the next 2 to 3 years. They're younger guys. Cooper Bassett, former Oklahoma State guy. He just comes to front of mind here first. He's a younger guy who is at Oklahoma State now, and maybe in a couple of years, he all of a sudden is in position to be offense coordinator when Tom Meacham's 65, and hey, that's right when he's going to retire, and all of a sudden it's just, you know what? We're wiping our hands and we're good. He transfers power transitionally wise really well, and the second that Cooper Bassett's offered something better, where he goes, hey, I could be an OC over at another school at Power 5, Oklahoma State goes, hey, you know what? Why don't you stay here for another year or two, and we'll see how this goes. Now, that doesn't always work out great. In fact, I don't think the track record of a guy in waiting usually works out that great. We saw in the NFL this year with Gerard Mayo that did not work out great at all, but that's a very specific example here that's just in front of mind for a lot of people. So I think that's happening in both the offensive and defense coordinator-wise, because both the OC and DC are around Gundy's age right now, and Gundy's no longer 40. That was earlier on in his coaching career, where now he's been at Oklahoma State for 20 years. So I'm hoping that is the case here with hiring on guys who are really experienced and been around a lot, and they're able to get some stability to the program that honestly, after last season, you go winless in conference, you tear everything back down to the bare bones. You go from square one here of let's do the opposite of the DC. Let's get the guy who's really experienced, who's been around for a while at multiple different levels. Now, is it the best name in the entire book for DC? No, I did not know the name Todd Grantham until he was named DC. I did not. Did you? So,
No,
yeah,
I did not either.
Todd Meacham was not front of mind for OC either. It was not like, oh, yeah, let's go get a guy who was a wide receivers coach again. Like, that was not, that doesn't really track with what I'm saying, right? But I don't necessarily think last year, offensive coordinator-wise, we were that horrible from just a scheme factor. I think we were really bad in several areas, and I'm hoping that we get better. What do you think about all this? Do you think that there is a possible way like 90,000 miles above this deal where Gundy's looking at this and just really playing chess like I'm kind of thinking he might be?
Yeah, I don't know. That's hard to say. He could be. He definitely could be. But I think what they needed to do, and for obvious reasons, they needed to get to find an OC and a DC, and they did that. Like, that was something that they made sure to not, delay anything like that. They went out there, they got an OC, they got a DC. Hopefully that translates to, a better season next year, or at least some positivity, because last year was we're horrible. You mentioned the Colorado game. I mean, the offense couldn't move the ball 10 yards down the field. It was awful to watch. So I just hope we don't run into those kind of issues again. Like I said, we're just way too good of a program to be that type of team. And I hope Gundy really wants to go out, because he's at the end of the day, probably not going to coach much longer anyway. I don't know how many years he's got in him, but I just hope he really turns this thing around and puts us back to where we belong, and then passes it along to whoever else is eventually going to take over the program.
Yeah, I cannot agree more. I think there's a lot of guys here that I am very hopeful pan out to be bigger stars here. There's the running backs coach who came in from nowhere, and he had no relationship to Oklahoma, or I think even the state of Oklahoma before coming here. So there's also guys like that too, where I'm going, is Gundy just hired a bunch of his own? I'm like, you know what? I don't think so. There's another thing though, is that Gundy's bringing in 9 transfers, or I guess the Oklahoma State program is, that are from Power 4 schools here for this season. We got guys that, granted, hey, Auburn, not a great team last year. Purdue, not a great team last year. But also we got some guys here from LSU and TCU and, UCLA, Nebraska. Those are all schools that I know about and we can talk about. And heck, another school that we know went to a bowl game. Didn't win it, but went to a bowl game. NOU. So there's some transfers coming in here that could be good, could really help out the program. And of course, there's Haas Haney. I hope I'm saying that right. Maybe I'm saying backwards. But heck, we got another competition here at quarterback. We got another guy. I mean, do you think there is a chance here that this guy is the QB? He comes over, follows, of course, Meacham from TCU. What do you think we end up doing at quarterback, really?
Man, you're asking me, probably you're going to ask me a question that I have absolutely no idea about. Because
it doesn't seem like... does Gundy know what we're doing? Maybe that's another question.
I'm thinking the same thing. I was thinking to myself today, random thoughts. Here I am, Alexi, on a Saturday. What are we going to do at quarterback next year? Because I have no idea. All I hear is, Zane Flores is the next guy. Then we bring in this transfer guy. And then we have Rangel still here, right? Is he still around? From what I know, he is.
Yeah, I mean, broke his collarbone, but you know what? He'll be back.
So, yeah, I have no idea. I think that's the biggest wild card that's probably going to be going into camp for spring. I mean, I really don't. I would like to think it'd be Flores because they have such high expectations for him, and that's all I've heard about the last couple of years is his potential. But again, you're bringing in these transfer portal guys, and got Rangel, who they seem to be high on too. Yeah, I don't know what the heck they're going to do at quarterback next year. I really don't.
I mean, Haney seems like he's a highly recruited guy who Oklahoma State did offer before he went to TCU in the first place. he does have family who went to TCU, so that could have helped indicate why he went there in the first place, not just because he didn't like Oklahoma State. I don't know. I'm grasping straws here, but I'm trying to work with what I got. The one other thing here is that Haney just seems a lot like Rangel. So if you're thinking, hey, we want a guy like Rangel in our system, that's kind of the system that Todd Meacham wants to run. Maybe Zane Flores hasn't shown anything for us to think he should be that great. You know, I mean, maybe it was, hey, you know what? Yeah, go get surgery on your bone spur on your foot because you're probably not seeing the field this season. And then, of course, Rangel and Bowman get hurt, and then all of a sudden we're seeing, you know, Milwaukee. I mean, Malachi. I have no idea how to say that guy's first name. I just didn't. His last name. Excuse me. I've been staring at it for 5 years, and I pronounced it 7 million different ways on every podcast. But so is everyone else here. So Haney is a 6 foot, 195 quarterback who's knows Meacham. He's known Meacham for quite some time here. As detailed in the Pistols Firing blog.com article, he's known Doug Meacham since his sophomore year in high school. That's a great sign, I think, for him coming over and having a great chance of starting, or at least being offered the chance to start and compete, because he has 4 more years of eligibility because he was able to redshirt last year. So he wasn't just kicking the socks off at TCU. He wasn't their starting quarterback who transferred over. He may not be the biggest deal in the world, but I'm really hoping here at the end of the day that he is coming to Oklahoma State for a reason, because Meacham goes, you know what? I've been here for a day. Let's see if we can go get Haas in. Because it'd be really cool overall. And I do think that the transfer portal dates here will allow us to know what's going on. Transfer portal is closed now, apparently, even though Jeff Robertson entered it. Our linebacker entered it 2 days ago, even though it's been closed since December 28th. So who knows what's going on with the transfer portal overall. That's kind of my 2 cents on it. I mean, it is the Wild West of college football, because guys are entering the portal well after it's apparently closed, but just now we know that they entered the portal, and they could have entered it, of course, beforehand. And what sanctions are you going to give a guy for entering the portal late if he's able to enter it? I don't know how any of that works here. I'd rather have a linebacker from last season who played some snaps on the team still for this next season, just because you always want some guys to stick with you. But I think having 4 quarterbacks on the roster, we're going to know which one has a good chance of starting, which one has a good chance of being backup, and which one is fighting for that 3rd string spot with the 4th string guy when it comes down to April. Because portal open back up here in the spring, April 16th to April 25th. Of course, we could see a guy enter well after that too, or one of the guys say, yeah, I'm actually just going to head to the portal when it opens too, and just leave the program tomorrow. I mean, anything's possible now, you know. And the control that college football has over the college football programs have over a guy and how he does in college is just no longer there. But then, of course, we're also seeing guys come in here too. Have you seen one of the guys here that's either the 2 UCLA guys, Purdue guy, Nebraska wide receiver, anyone so far just kind of, hey, you know what? I think that's a position of need that we really could use. I'm glad we got these guys in. Or, you know what? I was excited to see a guy come in here from LSU or OU or wherever as well. Because we won't know how any of these guys are until we actually see them play for us. We've seen previously some guys, Tay Martin, they transferred from Washington State, and then all of a sudden they're great, and then they score a touchdown in the NFL this past week. And we've also seen some guys who transfer in, and then all of a sudden we never hear about them. So really up and down no matter what.
Yeah, you know, like you said, you never really know how good a player is until they're on the field and in your system. So yeah, not sure exactly what to expect of these guys. I don't know much about them, but I was looking a little bit into this UCLA guy that we got. And anytime you can get a guy on defense, especially for a team like us, hopefully it helps. So Jalen Davies, I believe is who it is, from UCLA. Looks like he started quite a bit. Yeah, 20 starts with UCLA the past 2 seasons. So that's a good sign to see. Let's see. He recorded 108 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss, a half a sack, 4 interceptions. Some good numbers, at least from the standpoint of UCLA and what they did with them. So hopefully that can translate over to us in the Big 12. Like I said, we're never usually a good defense outside of that year. A couple years ago when we had, I'm blanking on his name, the defensive coordinator from Ohio State.
Knowles?
Yes, Knowles. outside of that year, we've never really had a great defense in the past 10 seasons. So if he can be somewhat good for our defense and stop a play when it's 3rd and 15, then sure, bring him in. Let's get some more guys like that, because that's another thing. I'm so tired of watching this defense. I've said this to a lot of my friends, and this is going to be a perfect segue into it, is how in the heck, in all these years that I've watched Oklahoma State football, I feel like every time I'm watching a game and it's 3rd and 20, that the other team's getting a first down. What is our philosophy? What is the Oklahoma State defensive philosophy? Again, outside of that Jim Knowles year, it's the same crap every year, and I get tired of it. And it just, I don't know what to say. It's hard to watch. We can't get big stops when we need to. And it's just like, it feels like the defense is always on the field. So I don't know. That's another thing I want to see us do better. Get some better guys on defense who know what they're doing, but also have a philosophy of something different. We need to change something up. We can't keep running the same system out there that we have in years past. I think I've gotten really frustrated about that too.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all there. I mean, that has been seems a sore spot for Oklahoma State for forever. When it comes to everything, I mean, our defense is just abysmal. It seems like most years, and I don't say that because I'm like, oh yeah, you know, that's the one thing we got to fix no matter what, and if we can fix that one thing would be great. I mean, and no, we went 0-9 conference play. Of course, there's special teams, there's offense, there's all these other things here that I'm like, yeah, we need to be better at that. We just need to. But when it comes to so many different team stats here overall, just of totals, we are last in team defense. We allowed the most amount of rush yards, and we almost allowed the most amount of pass yards. In fact, Texas Tech allowed 6,000 more pass yards than we did. We allowed almost 700 more rush yards than they did. I mean, it's abysmal. We were allowing 500 yards a game last year in the Big 12. And I know the Big 12 is known not for playing defense, but we decided to say, hey, we'll live up to that motto here this past season. And in offense, I'd go, you know what, we're horrible, whatever. Well, we averaged 374 yards a game. And Houston, who won Big 12 conference games, they averaged 290 yards a game. So, yeah, it's not the end-all be-all. I'm not trying to make it just like, oh, here's some stats here, and this is why. But I would like to say we scored 40 touchdowns last year. There are 3 other schools in the Big 12 who scored less amount of touchdowns than we did. But on the other side of the ball, on defense, we allowed 54 touchdowns. Texas Tech allowed 56. But besides them, we are last in the Big 12. West Virginia allowed 54. Are we really trying to hang out with these two schools here in the Big 12? And I know Texas Tech is supposed to have a good year this year. And you know what? They finished first overall on offense. So if you finish second to last in defense yards a game, but you finish first overall on offense yards per game, you know, you'd rather not be the second worst, but you'd also rather be the first, and they were in one category here in stat-wise. We're pretty close to the bottom in both, but absolutely being the absolute bottom here and let the entire bottom fall out of the... I feel like Travis Hunter won the Heisman when he played against us. You know, that's never a thing you want to say. I feel like that game was shown to every Heisman voter who was on the fence, Ashton Genty or Travis Hunter, and it was, see Travis play against Oklahoma State? Like, that's a Power 4 school that was supposed to win their conferences here. There's a lot of good players still on the team, etc. A lot of great talent. And all of a sudden it was, oh yeah, he had an interception and multiple touchdowns. Like, I just stings quite a bit here. So I got to agree. Jalen Davies, he started out his career at Oregon, then transferred to UCLA, had 20 starts over the past 2 seasons for them. And, you know, I mean, he has some sacks, he has some pass deflections. He seems like a guy who's a well-rounded corner. Bringing a guy with some size and some skill. I mean, he's got the smallest dude out there ever on the field. It's not like he was picked on all the time. He was an All-American. And initially picked on going to Oregon over Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, Texas, USC. So clearly the guy had a lot of pro potential here fairly early on. Now, again, that's 2020, so it's been a minute here. But he's from Rancho Cucamonga, California, so he was well scouted, and he visits Oklahoma State. Then a couple days later, he's like, "Hey, I'm a Cowboy. I'm already coming. because we're offering him some type of potential, and he's 6 foot 180. He's not the smallest guy out there at corner, and you know what? There's enough guys coming in here that I'm excited about too. I will say, I mean, there's enough guys coming in where I'm like, hey, you know what? Got a buddy who I used to work with who is a huge Nebraska fan, and he's like, hey, you know what? You guys are getting one of these guys. Like, you're getting a wide receiver, Jalen Lloyd. He's pretty darn good. Like, really? If he's that great, why is he coming to Oklahoma State? No offense, but like Nebraska seems like they got a guy who's pretty darn good at QB. Why would a wide receiver want to leave that QB situation for our uncertain QB situation? He's like, well, you know what? He's a work in progress, but he's fast. And you know what? Be nice to have a really fast wide receiver. Not mad about that at all, especially a guy who's, formerly a very highly skilled recruit who went to go play with Dylan Raiola. Saying that wrong, Raiola. So, I mean, he's a 5'10" guy, so he's smaller than our corner, but you know what? He got 19 passes for almost 500 yards and 3 touchdowns for Nebraska last year, and then transferred us. So, take it. And heck, he won the 2022 National Junior Olympic Championships long jump crown while finishing third in the 100 meters. So he's fast and he can jump real high. We know those two things here. Giving you the breaking news here from Pistols Firing, of course. Yeah, that's where to get all the info. But yeah, I mean, that was not an inside scoop at all. I'm not trying to say that. We'll link that Pistols Firing articles here down below, wherever you listen to this podcast. But yeah, is there a lot of optimism in your eyes here that this next season will be better than this past one for football?
I mean, it is hard to be as bad as we were last year, in my opinion. I mean, no Big 12 wins. Just seemed like a lost year from pretty much beginning of Big 12 play. So, yeah, I think there should be hopefully some optimism that we have some better players next year, or at least, the coordinators are better and can at least get the players in the right place where they need to. Hopefully the quarterback play is better. I think that was another thing coming into last season was Alan Bowman. I think they maybe believed a little bit too much in him, and he was exposed more as the year went along. And so hopefully better quarterback play translates to a better season. So yeah, I think there's some optimism. I don't know how good we can be next year because, again, there's going to be a lot of question marks. But if it's being better than last year and winning a couple Big 12 games, I'll take that as long as it gets us in the right direction. So yeah, I think we can be better next year. How much better? That I don't really know. I have to see more, maybe after spring camp.
Yeah, and I'm going to assume there's no spring game this year. I don't remember the last time we had a spring game is. If anything, the spring game would be right when the portal is open and you're actively trying to keep guys. So if it was me and I was just talking about this, of course, as not as a football coach, but only as a basketball coach, I would definitely want the portal to be open when I could play a bunch of guys, on the same week, just to give them a bunch of hope that they'd be playing a lot more in the fall to keep guys around. But then again, roster cuts now are a big deal because you're NIL money and getting down to that 105 number we've seen everywhere. So there's a lot of ups and downs here. There's a lot of differences. And any other kind of final thoughts here about football here before I ask you the one baseball question on my mind here and we kind of wrap this one up? Nothing more to add about football?
Sorry, you cut out there.
No, you're good. Yeah, I was just going to say any other thing here to add about football before I ask you the one baseball question before we wrap this one up?
No, honestly, not really. I want to see a better approach going into next season. There has to be some urgency from the coaches, especially from Gundy. We got to see something better next year from him, and hopefully we can just move in the right direction and get back to what we are, and that's Oklahoma State football being good and running the Big 12. That's what we need.
Yeah, well, got to see a better team next year. We got to win a Big 12 game next year. I mean, the schedule sets up where I think we have some opportunities. We'll see what dates every single game is here, but more will be revealed here, I guess, in football as we get closer to it. And I'm sure this will not be the last time you and I talk about the Oklahoma State football season as it comes up here. Not too far away, not to the too far distant future, but of course still in the distant future here. We still haven't had media dates or anything in spring. But all right, guys, the one baseball question here. Okay. You are the baseball fan, I know. I mean, as it comes down to it, you are the St. Louis Cardinals fan. You are the baseball guy. I know. To have on here on the podcast. Is there a position that Oklahoma State has here? A guy certainly. Then you go. You know what? We would love to have this guy up in St. Louis. So is there a position of need where you're like, yeah, we need a pitcher, we need a catcher, we need a center fielder, we need a first baseman? That I can kind of go, you know what? I can see Oklahoma State bringing this guy. This guy's could be a pro here and get you a chance here to get St. Louis another title. Of course, my San Diego Padres could use their first one, but you know what? Yeah, it is what it is. You know, it is what it is.
For sure. Are you just asking if there's a player from Oklahoma State baseball?
Yeah, I mean, is there a guy? I'm not asking you think there's a guy who's pro potential here, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You know, we added an infielder in Drew Culbertson from Missouri. You know, it is transfer in here. You know, next month we're going to start baseball season, which seems very odd for the MLB, but of course for college baseball, it's definitely a thing. We'll be playing games in June, hopefully too, but we're definitely going to start playing games here. You know, and you know, Cowboys are retooling. Had 8 players drafted, you know, last year in the MLB, and you know, I always see new guys in here. But is there a position that you're going, hey, this is a position of need we have in St. Louis? Let's get that first.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think it's finding that hitter. I think we still need to find someone in our lineup who can be the next guy who can just carry a team when we need to. And there are some young guys that we have on our team already, but we haven't got their potential entirely. So hopefully one of them can pick it up this year. If there's someone out there on the Oklahoma State team who we could find, I don't know who that's going to be. I haven't seen too much of the roster for this year. Haven't looked too much into college baseball lately, but I am excited to see how, not to go too off topic with it being the Cardinals, but when the Mets drafted Carson Bench at 19th overall, I'm excited to see how he does in the New York Mets system. That was a big pick for him to go that top 20 pick, 19th overall. So really excited to see how his career turns out. He's going to be a highly touted prospect there in the New York Mets system.
Yeah, he will. I mean, he's now going to only play outfield. Not complaining anywhere else. And yeah, I mean, I think you guys could make a trade for a former Oklahoma State player here who's he's high affiliated with the Yankees. So I think I think you guys could go get Rock Riggio and really see what you guys could do here. You know, I mean, he's the 18th prospect in the Yankees organization. Go get you guys an Oklahoma State guy. Yeah, I mean that's not, can't hurt you. You know, I mean he had 316 with 29 home runs at Oklahoma State in his 2 years, and was all Big 12 freshman team, you know, as well in 2021 before making the first all Big 12 team in 2022 and heading to the pros. So I mean, you guys could, you know, go get a guy here, and you're right. Yeah, Bench 19th overall in the MLB. He's got a great chance to make the pros, and I don't know. I mean, like I said, that Missouri transfer earlier, maybe that's the guy you guys are like looking for. You know, you're looking for an infielder to put next to Arenado later on a little bit, and you know, a guy who was playing in Missouri and 6 foot 180. And yeah, I can talk about, you know, size all day in baseball, but at the end of the day, you're not seeing a lot of 6'5" guys play short. Tatis lasted there for a year or two. That was it. So if you do need a guy who's like 6 foot 180, he can play a little second base, and hey, he's 419 with 8 home runs. So not too long ago, and you know, he didn't do that great at Missouri. Of course, it's kind of why he transferred. A lot of baseball guys, I'm not sure if that's really leaked over, if they're really transferring to be necessarily in a better spot, if they're already in a decent spot. I think those guys kind of stay where they're at. If they're already in a decent spot, they just kind of stay there, really baseball. But, you know, that just kind of changes up and down. So, thanks so much for joining me here on the latest episode of the CGA Tour Podcast. Always great having you on here. If you're not already, how are the picks doing this year? I know you're a picking guy up and down.
Yes.
How are the picks going?
Honestly, lately, not great. I'm transparent. So when I'm doing well, I'll tell you. When I'm doing bad, I'll also tell you that. So lately, haven't been too hot. I'm still trying to, mostly right now, I'm doing some college basketball picks. So I'm trying to adjust to knowing who the heck is actually good out there. I follow college basketball, obviously, but with these transfer portals and these new rosters, it's hard to understand exactly who's actually good and who's not. So, yeah, I'm still trying to adjust to that, but we'll get right. We'll get right for college basketball, and then NFL playoffs are coming up too. So,
well, in college basketball, is there a Big 12 team that you've bet that has helped or hurt you? Maybe
Big
on the
12,
right or wrong side, or are you not even messing with the Big 12?
Iowa State has been very good to me on that part. Yeah, Iowa State's good, man. They're one of my favorites at the moment to get to the Final Four. Of course, it always depends on their draw in March, because a tough draw could affect their way of getting to the Final Four. But yeah, man, I love this Iowa State team. Great team. Starting five is amazing. The defense is great as always. Otzelberger is a heck of a coach there in Ames. Yeah, what Iowa State has done, man, it makes me feel like, why can't Oklahoma State be like this? Not to get into this deeper, but it really does make me wonder, why can't Oklahoma State be on the level of Iowa State, especially in basketball right now? So, yeah, what they're doing, really impressed with them. They've been really fun to watch and good to me on my picks whenever I am siding with them.
Yeah, well, there you go. Oklahoma State fans, if you're trying to follow a Big 12 team here and see what we should be prototyping our model off of, it's like those guys up in Ames, where I think the last time they lost a home game was to us, I want to say.
Jeez,
which is years ago now, but still with point as head coach. So at least the least amount of points that they've scored in Hillsdale Coliseum is to Oklahoma State. I'm still pretty sure it was 36 points not too long ago. Unfortunately, it was not with the Cade Cunningham team, but still, nonetheless, here.
For sure.
If you're not already, please follow, subscribe here on YouTube. If that's where you're listening to this podcast, subscribe down below. We've had that runner going the entire time here with the banner here saying where to follow on Twitter, of course. I'm not calling it X until further notice. But we're on Threads, Blue Sky, Instagram, all the good type of stuff here. But if you're not already, please subscribe to the CGA Tour Podcast. Give it a thumbs up. Share with a friend. Trying to get to 500 subscribers before too long here. I'm not going to set a date just yet because, hey, everything's onwards and upwards. So, Alexi, thanks so much for joining again here. And just catch you guys again soon here on the next episode of the CGA Tour.